Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about building web for everyone and focusing more on accessibility, which most of us actually forget. So, a bit introduction about myself. I'm a web engineer and I mostly work with React and JavaScript. I'm also a Google developer expert in web, and I'm also an organizer at React India and JSConf India. And that's my Twitter handle. If you want to know more about React or in general accessibility, you can definitely follow me. So today, what we'll be covering is we'll be seeing what are the types of disabilities, what are the assistive technologies that we could use. Also, more how do people work with screen readers, and more writing the semantic way of HTML, and also some tricks on how you can build accessible web apps. So firstly, I would like to tell is accessibility is not a barrier to building web applications. In fact, it is an innovation, and it doesn't really have to be with using React or Angular. It doesn't. It is not a barrier. In fact, it's an innovation. And often people say that working with accessibility and with React, there's often some confusions that might happen, but that's not the case. So React is just writing your HTML, I mean JSX, so it doesn't really give you some barrier. To start with, I would like to say that what's WCAG? So WCAG is a set of guidelines provided by Web Accessibility Initiative, and this is sort of guidelines that is provided so that you can have sort of some guidelines, and there is a compliance level attached to it. So if you see, there are certain compliance level already there with you, that's A and AA and AAA, for example. And this is sort of that compliance level. So why does web accessibility matter anyway? So why does it matter? Let's have a look. So in this world, we have different people, and there are your friends, there are your grandparents, there are some legal people already watching over your website. How do you react in such cases? How do you make sure what is going wrong? So when I started looking at accessibility, I already had like a very wrong view of it. I thought that it's like it's only to deal with blind people, but I was totally wrong. I mean, it's far beyond that. So it's just the perception, and I must say that 1 in every 10 users will have some kind of disability. This could be some visual, this could be auditory, this could be motor, this could also be a cognitive, which involves dyslexia. So there are often different types of disabilities, and serving your website remains accessible for all of them is really important. So this can also be, I would like to say that accessibility also depends on situation. I mean, you might just break your arm, and you still need your website or web app to be accessible. So it's not permanent, or it's not only from birth. It could also be situational. So when I talk of web accessibility, there are certain types of principles. For example, there is 4 principles. The first one is perceivable and operable, and then understandable. What I mean by that is perceivable means your content should be perceived by everyone, no matter who they are. Operable, it should be operated via keyboard, mouse, some other assistive technologies used by the user. So all of these principles sort of gives you that. This is also called as PORE. So people call it as PORE, and this is like a set of principles that makes your web app more accessible if you follow them. So yes, today I will be talking about building for everyone. What I meant by that is making it keyboard accessible, Also making sure that whatever color you're using, it is accessible as well. Doesn't matter what framework you use, Vue, Angular, React, doesn't matter, but still, we'll be seeing how to make accessible web apps. So the first advice is start writing cementing HTML right from the start. What I mean by that, I'll be covering in the few slides later. And it's not a rocket science, or it's not a tool that gets involved overnight in your website and everything is wow. But it's writing semantic HTML right from the start, and accessibility is actually already there in your browsers. I mean, although your website still might not be accessible, but web is already accessible. So it's just the way you write your HTML. So, there are many ways to basically navigate or browse through your web. That means your websites. It could be keyboard, magnification. For example, somebody using mouse stick to access the interface, somebody using head wand to access your web. So there are different ways, and these are different kinds of people you need to support. So there are screen readers. All through my slides, I'll be giving more examples for screen readers because, that's really important to my heart. So we'll be covering on that. So a quick thing I like to say is keyboard shortcuts. If you already know, if you are dealing with building accessible web apps, one thing that you should be doing is always making sure that any action that you perform on your web app or website is also given a keyboard shortcut, for example, which makes it a little bit easier for people who cannot use mouse, for example, or even otherwise, shortcuts always is a good option. So this is one of the things which is mandatory. For example, Twitter does that. And some general tips that I'll be sharing. So let's take the first slide, the slide, and see that here, if you see over here, we have this green check mark which says, okay, our website is AA compliance, and the contrast ratio. Now, what is contrast ratio? This is a standard ratio against your foreground and the background. So some colors that you're trying to use. So the developer tools that Chrome has already provides us with this set of feature where you can already hover over your color, you can click on it, and you can see this contrast ratio. So on the left hand side, you see that the contrast ratio is really good, but on the right hand side, you see it says a stop. There's a red mark which says, okay, 3.0, which is not which is not really good. So here the contrast ratio is 1.87, and here it's 5. So it should be always above 3, which is a good minimum requirement to make your web app accessible, and which is also AA compliance. So why not use it if it's already there in the Chrome DevTools? So always make sure that you maintain that good contrast ratio and not just go by the colors provided by your designers. Also, there's a good thing. There's this website where you can check your contrast ratio against the background and your text color. For example, it says, okay, it's a good contrast ratio, and it is not. So definitely you should use it. It's called contrast ratio, and it's by Lee Vero. So definitely go and try it. Next thing I would like to say, always make sure that don't try to reinvent the wheel. In fact, always make sure that, if there's already something built in the community, for example, which it can be a model which is accessible. It can be a auto suggest which is accessible. So try and use that, and don't try to reinvent the wheel. Always use libraries that is already tested by people. Light mode and dark mode is my favorite. Make sure if you can do it, because it's not only to do with certain people. It can be people who might have strains with light colors or dark colors. So always good to have these modes in your website or web app. Have a descriptive name for alt text, which means that, I mean, this is a simple image, and if I would like to describe with alt tag, I would say, okay, you can see here 2 man holding a flag. Fine, but if it could be more descriptive, like 2 man holding the US flag. I mean, these are small things, but still makes a lot of sense when your screen readers will, for example, say voiceover on Mac will start using this will start reading your HTML, and it will read, okay, 2 man holding the US flag. The person who's blind might see this as a very descriptive thing, and he knows, okay, what sense does the page makes, or what sense the image makes. So yes, this is one of the important step. Always have a descriptive name for your alt text, especially, I mean, always provide an alt text in your image tag. Next is having a unique titles. So always make sure that if you have, there are different pages, and when you start using React, like you are navigating through your routers, you land on the page, and when screen readers are navigating through your web app or website, it is really important for them to know the context of what the page they are on. So having a unique titles definitely is one of way. Now we will start with some of the things that is really important with React, and it's not going to be something different, because when you're writing your JSX, you're still writing your HTML. So under the hood, it's writing a good HTML. So we'll see how we can write some of the semantic HTMLs while making your React components still accessible. So let's say it's a text area, and here you see there are different area attributes that I've provided. Area attributes is one of the attributes that is needed when you want to make your web app accessible. For example, so here what I mentioned is some of the attributes that you pass to your components would become camel case, but your area attributes still remain the same. So there's no effect that happens to your area attributes. While you see your max length, tab index, all of those changes, but the area attributes remain as it is. So start using fragments instead of using a lot of divs. I still remember, like in the past, when using React, always when we couldn't return multiple elements from your render, like from your component, you would wrap it with the div, because only a single element could be returned. But now there is a way. But when you start using div, there's always one extra element that gets attached, which might not be needed, but just because you cannot return multiple elements from your render method, you used to do that, but now there's a way, because fragments don't take up an extra element in your DOM. So start using fragments. How would you handle forms? So first thing is having a required fields. Second is errors, and today we'll also see how do we deal with disabled buttons. So let's say we take the first example, which is first name, and we have a submit button. So you need to say this thing, that this is a required thing in your web app. I mean, in your form. So you cannot go forward without filling this. How would you do that? So let's say you have an input component, and you have like a set of attributes that you're trying to pass. And to make it required, you say, okay, if you pass required to this input component, this is the way I would render. So always make sure when you are passing required here, make sure you also have an area required as well as required attribute, so that when you pass area required, it is also known by people who are using assistive technology, for example, voiceover, that, okay, this field is required. Without filling this, I cannot proceed to the next one. So this is one way you could build your component. Like, don't just pass required. I mean, it will be visible for the users who have the visual power, but for the non-sighted user, you still would not give that description of saying that this field is required. What happens when you are dealing with multiple fields? For example, let's say you have your first input with first name and the second input with the last name, and now you know for sure that both of the fields are required. Why I mean, definitely have the required attribute passed to these components, but make sure that you have a set of descriptive sentence, or you are basically telling the user that this field is required right at the first. So now the user knows, okay, whatever fields are there in my form, I need to fill it. So this is one of the way which is good, wherein you have multiple fields which is required. You instruct the user right at the start, okay, listen, all the fields are required, so just fill it. In that case, when the assistive technology user is trying to read it, he or she will definitely know that this all the fields are required. So this is the way it is rendered. For example, we had input, and this is how it would be rendered. Each input will have a label and the input, and this is how it would be rendered. Now, let's say we have a field with a specific format, right? We have a date and we have an input. As a visual user, I know, okay, I have to provide a date which looks something like this. So I know for sure that this is how I would have to basically put the date as a visual user. But as a non-sighted user, how would you give that information? So first thing is you can have area labeled by. So you can always attach an area labeled by to your input and give it a name. For example, here I gave it an instructs. An instruct here is nothing but it's an ID with the span, which gives the more information about the label here. So now when the assistive technology will read it, it will basically say, okay, this field is must be in the format this. And now the non-sighted user already knows that, okay, fine. So the field should be in this particular format. More towards it, you can also have, the area labeled attribute can have multiple names provided to it, multiple values provided to it. So for example, if you need to say date must be of this format, so this is how it would read. So this would be very useful when the user is using assistive technologies. One thing we already saw that, we used area labeled by, but make sure that area labeled by is intended to identify the element that labels the current element. So in this case, we are providing more information about this field, right? So you could use area labeled by, but the more appropriate way would be using area described by. I mean, use area labeled by only when you want to override the label and not say more information about the current label. So I would here use area described by. So you do the same thing. Basically, you give it a value saying instruct, and your instructs is nothing here but span with the same name as you provided the value to the area described by. And when the screen reader will read it, it will give more information about this field, and the non-sighted user already knows, okay, this should be the format. Let's see how we can handle errors, because these are most important part when you deal with forms. So this is my way of seeing it. I always make sure that the errors are always attached to your input field, so that it gives you more information about what's happening with the field, what's going wrong, instead of just giving the error at the last. Okay, something went wrong. So for example, let's say, you try to enter something in the field and you try to submit. It gives you an information right down in your input. So that's how the error should be associated with your input field. So let's take this example. For example, we have an input component where, we always say that it should be described by email errors, and your error component is nothing but, if something happens to your component, it would generate the error. So this is how you should always associate your fields, and your errors would look something like this with the role alert. Very important, because again, this is one of the thing, if the non-sighted user is trying to see that, if something has popped up, it's an alert for them. Okay, something went wrong and they need to fix it, and then they can proceed. So now let's see, how do we handle disabled buttons? Often we just put this attribute disabled and we are done, right? But let me tell you, don't ever make your submit buttons disabled, because once you do that, it gets removed from your accessibility tree. That means all the non-sighted users, if they are making use of assistive technology, they wouldn't even know that if this button exists or not. So don't ever make your button disabled by passing, disabled attribute. Instead, there is a way you could do it. Make your button look like it is disabled. Apply some styles to it. For example, disabling the pointer, like applying pointer events none, where even if you try to go through your button, it will basically prevent the click. So, and visually also it is looking disabled. And you can provide the attribute area disabled, so that the non-sighted users understand that, okay, this button is disabled for them, and once they do some action, it will be enabled. So don't ever pass disabled attribute. You can definitely pass area disabled, so that the non-sighted users know it. And for the sighted users, make sure you make the buttons look disabled visually, and also provide some CSS to prevent the clicking. If there is a case, for example, that you need to make it disabled, I mean, there's no other way. You need to make it disabled for your sighted users. It doesn't matter for the non-sighted, because we have some other functionality for them. So in this case, you can always have certain attribute being passed to your component, and if this attribute is there, then you can pass it disabled. But this could be very exceptional cases. Otherwise, don't make your button disabled by passing in disabled attribute to your button. Make sure you have self-explanatory CTAs. What I mean by this is click here, go is good for sighted users, but when you see non-sighted users, a continue button on the page would not make much sense for them. Instead, you could provide something which is visually hidden. That means hidden for the sighted users, but available for the users who are using screen readers, so that they know the description, that what is happening on that page or on the button. So this could be one of the things to keep in mind. If you have decorative buttons or icons, make sure you have some area labels provided to it. For example, this button for the sighted users looks perfectly good, because once I click on it, something happens and I can see it visually. But for the non-sighted user, it is, I don't know what's happening. So as soon as I click, I need something to tell, okay, the padlock is toggled. So the users who are using assistive technology already knows that something has happened on the screen. Always make sure, I mean, a lot of us don't like CSS, like, so do I. So make use of Flexbox, which is really great, and everything gets done so faster. But make sure that when you use Flexbox, for example, this could ruin your visual order sometimes. And then when you use tab, and then when you press tab, your order should not get ruined. Just take care of that. This is one of the things that you should keep in mind. I mean, with great power comes the great responsibility. So if you're using Flexbox, make sure also the DOM order and the visual order is maintained while you're pressing tab. Be careful when doing it, so it desynchronizes the DOM from the visual order, as I said before, making the keyboard navigation more difficult. So use it, but make sure that it is accessible via keyboard and the order still remains the same. Hiding content. I would say hiding content, again, when you use display none, visibility hidden, the content will not be visible for the screen readers. It gets removed from the accessibility tree. So let's say you want to have something, you want to build something that is accessible to the screen readers. Always make sure that you hide them visually while using some sort of CSS and not actually use display none or visible hidden, because in this case it will be removed for the screen readers already and they wouldn't even know that something of that sort exists. So make sure that you apply some sort of CSS which gets removed, which will not get removed from the accessibility tree, but it will be just hidden somewhere visually, but still be available in the DOM and will be accessible by the screen readers. And the way we do it is, you could make this sort of CSS, for example, in your style components and use it wherever you want. For example, something like this. If you want to apply it to your wrapper, if you want to apply it to your review form, doesn't matter. Or you could also create a component and whenever required, like, just wrap it with your with whatever you want to hide visually, and now this is visually hidden for the sighted users, but still available for the non-sighted users. Icons, this is a good thing. Again, as said before, make sure you have the labels attached to your icons, because icons are good for sighted. They're understandable for the sighted users, but for non-sighted users, you need to give more information. Take charge of your focus. Always, when you want to make sure that you want to conduct your own test for any of the website, make sure you start pressing tab, 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 and it should be navigatable through keyboard. That's how you can test whether your web app or website is accessible or not. And if you press shift tab, you will move backwards to the navigation from your navigation. So make sure you start with that if you're very new to it and you want to enter the world where you're learning more about it. Make sure you start with this. This is one of the things that you could also remember, that a React class component, a function ref to act as a temporary landmark. I mean, these are the set of things which is useful in React, like providing a tab index wherever necessary. And yeah, this is to do with React. We move on to the next. Make sure if you're using dialogues or models, they're accessible. For example, React area model is one of the model already accessible, so why not use that? But make sure, and by that, by accessible, what I mean is, if you try to open your model, make sure the focus is on the model and on the button or on the area where the user needs to have the information, or user needs to have more information about it. So these are small things, but really makes sense. And then we move on to the next slide. There's also React Ally dialog, which you can have a look. This is also one of the accessible models already in the community, and a lot of people are using it. I would like to cover some of the development and testing tools that that could help you make your web app accessible. There's a linting. There's a linting stuff that you could already use, for example, which statically checks for accessibility mistakes. So for example, if you forgot to add an alt tag to your image here, this will basically prompt you that there's something wrong, you need to provide the alt tag. So this sort of thing basically makes you more way of doing it in a right way, and sort of making it possible for you to build accessible web apps right from the start. There's also React X, which you could install it in your development mode. Do not install it in your production mode. The way it works, it gives you sort of console errors in your console, which says, okay, the issue is serious, moderate, or okayish. And it says, okay, elements have sufficient color contrast. So on that particular page, it will start popping you some of the issues that's wrong with accessibility, considering all the guidelines by WCAG, which is a good thing. So make sure you use it if you're using React. There's Agnostic X, which you could also try. It does the same thing. as React X, but there's certain advantages. For example, it runs the audits if the actual DOM changes, whereas React X doesn't do that. It always changes even if there's not an actual DOM changes. So you could try Agnostic X as well. But these are the tools that gives you a power of making your web app more accessible, and also gives you a lot of information of what's going wrong. So there's also this tool called Peli, which you could use as an internal audit, including manual and automated testing. So it's like you could also include it in your build system if something is failing. So this is one of the good thing as well. The way you do it is basically install it globally, and then you say Peli and then your website name, and then you say I want to see only a warning. I want to ignore warning and notice, and I want to see all the serious errors that is wrong with the website. So all the serious errors that I need to see as a part of accessibility. And then I have React Li, which I already spoke to you. We already saw the color contrast that we saw in the previous slides. You could just check your color contrast with the background and the foreground. There's also extension, browser extensions, which helps you build accessible web apps. There's also a Storybook add-on. So let's say you're building your design systems using Storybook in React, and you have something that basically is like an add-on. So Storybook add-on Li is something that gives you it will start popping up some errors if something is wrong with your component and it is not accessible, and this has to do something with color contrast or landmark, or you forgot your alt tag. So it'll pop these things in the console, and this is done right when you're building your component and not adding the component in your application. So this is a good step if you're just starting with accessibility. There's some sanity checks that I always make sure it's there. So have light mode, dark mode. Always have a mechanism to pause the video if it is just played automatically as soon as you land on the website. Have contrast to maintain the color contrast. Make sure animations are subtle and they're not too much flashy. Always make sure there is a mechanism to pause the animation, because not a lot of users are okay with having animations on the website. So provide a way to disable them, or if there is a possibility to pause the heavy animation, this is also very good. Content is readable, have live captioning, transcripts, always have the reduce motion, as I said before, that your animation should be subtle, and you should always have a way to disable or pause it. Make sure everything is at least at a compliance level of AA. You shouldn't reach AAA, and not a lot of people reach that level, but because there are too many things to handle, but make sure that you have the AA conformance. So these are some of the popular desktop screen readers: JAWS for Windows. We have NVIDIA Windows, VoiceOver for Mac, ChromeWorks. And there's a new thing which popped up in Chrome DevTools a few months back. You can basically simulate your vision. So this is a good thing. I'm not sure if it's there in the latest Chrome, because when I checked, it was there in Chrome Canary. But you could go to your Chrome DevTools and you can actually simulate the vision of how it would look like to different users with blurred vision, or someone affected with red light or green light. So definitely go and check out that. Lastly, I would like to say that Li accessibility, dealing with any framework, there's no barrier at all, because you're still writing the core HTML under the hood. It's just you need to get skilled at building accessible apps. And lastly, I would say, if you're not doing it, start it right today and test, test, and test. That's it. You can subscribe to my newsletter. That's manjuladube.dev. And you can also follow me on Twitter. I'm writing a book on Web for Everyone, which will be released soon in the second week of October. I'm still working on that, but it will have a lot of variations, a lot of different informations for people who are just starting. So that's it. Thank you.
Can you hear me now, Manjula?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so tell me please, how did it go? How are you? Are you excited about all these experience and so on?
Yes, sure. I'm actually really excited. I mean, and I think it is the first conference that goes like 24 hours around the globe, so many people, and it's really exciting. And I'm always, when I saw this set of conference, I was really excited, and I'm truly thankful to you people to create such a conference. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Oh, Dhanyavad, your feedback is just warm. Perfect. Okay. Look, we will have some questions, and
Yeah,
we'll
sure.
definitely collecting them.
Yeah.
So the thing is, actually, I can only see just one single question right now available in the Pine tool. And in case if someone is sending more of them in a YouTube chat, that's just perfect. I'll collect them and bring them to the Q&A session. So right
Mhm.
now we are going to switch to a different speaker. You
Yeah.
actually finished your conversation a little bit faster, but that's fine. We're gonna give just a quick break to everyone
Yeah.
to take their coffees and so on. So one last word about like one general impression about React. What would you like to share? Like I would say an advice that you would like to bring to people.
Uh, I think I've worked with a lot of frameworks because I started with Angular, then moved on to Backbone, and now working with React from past
Yeah.
2-3 years. I think React community is really awesome. I mean, the way people are excited about it. There's always something new coming up, and people are really excited in the community
Yeah.
because there's so much welcoming. People are so welcoming, and if you're new to also open source. React community is really open. For example, they always want
Mhm.
newbies to start and come and contribute in open source. So I think I have been loving working with React from past 2-3 years, and I do not want to switch to anything else if that comes to my mind now, at least for
Okay.
now.
Yeah, I understand.
We'll see what the future has, but then yes, I think I'm really excited with the React community, and I'm really
Hmm.
excited that this conference is all about React Global Online Summit, which goes
Yeah.
across the globe with so many speakers and 24 hours. People are learning, learning, learning. I think that's the best thing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we are excited as well. You know, this experience, first time when we tried it was like really exciting, and we didn't know will it go well or not, will the people like it. But actually, yes, it is so, and we see more and more people, more and more speakers actually bringing more in different and still interesting topics. I never knew that React is so flexible in making the web actually more inclusive for people who don't have
Yeah.
like the full capabilities, and that's amazing. I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
How would you describe in that case these capabilities for different frameworks? What was it something before the React, or React is the first one?
I think people often try and compare React with Angular backbone, whereas I think it's not comparable because React is just the UI library, whereas
Hmm.
you still need to use some sort of state management
Yeah.
to actually manage your data. But
Well, that's right.
when you sort of use Angular and backbone, it comes with the power of handling your models and data.
Hmm.
I think UI React has a power of building a nice design systems wherein you would have a set of guidelines already in place in your company, and it gives you that power of doing things very efficiently, making use of reusable components, for example. So I think the community is very welcoming, and that is why people are always excited to
Yeah.
work with, and always there. For example, hooks came in, and there's always something coming up. So people are really excited in the community already.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, thank you. We'll get back to this, and like we have two more speakers, and then we'll have the discussion panel. And I'm sure we're gonna talk more about these things, and especially about, I think, one of the really exciting things would be the state management approaches. I know this it becomes more and more complicated these days. So thank you again,
Thank you.
and see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.